Hello, and welcome to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. I'm your host, Lauren, the Outdoorsy Diva. Thanks for joining. Hey, y'all. So happy to be back with you for another episode of the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. You are listening to episode 14. And today we're going to get into a topic that some might find to be a little controversial. I don't personally think so, but it's important nonetheless. So we're going to get into it. We are going to talk about camping while Black. I actually wrote a blog post about this topic a few years back, and I'm not sure what's happening out there in the Google algorithm, but I'm grateful, not complaining. But that particular article is being found a lot more often lately. I actually received a comment from a Black camper who went with his family, and they had a pretty scary experience. So it sparked the idea for me to have that conversation with the audience, get some feedback from some of my listeners. Today, I'm going to share with you more details about that reader's personal experience, as well as experiences from others who have also commented on this topic and my personal experience. We will also discuss why race even matters. Why does it play a factor when we talk about enjoying outdoor recreation? We'll talk about if this issue with camping while Black is limited to the American experience, or is this a bigger global issue? We'll talk about what you can do as a Black camper to be safe, and we'll talk about what we need from our allies. Before we jump right into that topic of discussion, I did want to take a moment to tell you that I will be a speaker at the Florida BlogCon conference. This is happening in Orlando at Mainsail University on September 7th. Florida BlogCon is a great one-day conference that's held in Central Florida. It's packed full of workshops on all types of topics, ranging from pitching to podcasting, and it's for beginning bloggers as well as experienced bloggers. The session I will be presenting will be on growing your brand through podcasting. So if you'll be in the Central Florida area during that time, it is definitely something worth checking out. Again, the website to get tickets is floridablogcon.com. When I originally wrote this post about camping while Black, it was sparked by an incident that happened to a family out of Sacramento, California. They were actually camping at a campground somewhere in Nevada, and the family was verbally assaulted with racial slurs. They were harassed by groups of white campers, and things escalated when they did go to the campground officials for help. The other family, someone was brandishing a shovel at them and threatening them. This was a family with, men, women, and children. So it was a really scary situation. Ultimately, Nevada police, law enforcement did get involved and called. And at the time, an arrest was not made, which I found to be really unbelievable. But eventually they did press charges against the people who were threatening them. And I'm not sure what happened to the case, but I know that charges were eventually pressed. And that was just really saddening to me, that a family had to experience something like that. And the one positive thing is that the family said it wasn't going to deter them from enjoying nature and enjoying the outdoors. This is something that they like to do as a family. Now, they won't patron that particular campground again, but they said they were still willing to pursue their love of being outside despite what happened to them. But what was so disheartening to me were the comments that people would make, like, well, what were they doing camping anyway? Because that's not something Black people do, or, Black people don't do that, or, that's why I don't go outdoors anyway. It was a barrage of those kinds of comments, and it just made me really sad, because I would hate for us to miss out on the beauty of nature and experiences with our kids just because we have fear of being mistreated. The incident shared with me earlier this week from one of my readers was a little less in your face, but it was still disconcerting nonetheless. So the gist of it is that he went camping with his family. It's something that his son had heard about in school and he wanted to try it. So trying to be a good dad, he agreed to take the family out to go camping. He admitted that he's not the most outdoorsy person, but he does like hiking and nature, so they opted to stay in a cabin, which is a great way to have the best of both worlds. You have comfort, but you also immersed in nature. Nothing wrong with that. So his family stay in a cabin at a campground, and during the night they thought they heard some weird noises on the porch of the cabin, and they thought they heard people outside as well, and some sounds that sounded like hail, but it wasn't hailing outside. He did look out of the window and he saw some people driving away in a golf cart, but he didn't actually see them on his porch. Anyway, the next morning, his wife found a painted rock on the porch. And this is a practice that some people do where they paint rocks and leave them for you to find in different places. Now, I know a lot of state parks discourage this because we don't want to disturb nature in any way, but this is something that some people do. And the particular rock that they left on the porch for this family was painted like a watermelon. Now, I know some of you may listen to this and think, oh, it was a rock painted like a watermelon. What's the big deal? Well, to Black people, particularly Black Americans, we were shown depicted as watermelon-loving monkeys for many decades. If you look back at Jim Crow propaganda, you can easily find very disparaging Sambo-like images of us eating watermelon. So that is a very common stereotype that Black people like watermelon. It's stupid and ridiculous because everybody likes watermelon, but it's something that for whatever reason has been brandished on our culture, and so it is seen as offensive to Black people to use that type of stereotype against us. So this family took it as something that was malicious, that was meant to send a message, and they alert the campground officials, as they should. And the campground officials basically told them they were overreacting. They called them liars and basically insinuated that they were making a big fuss about nothing and that they must be somehow trying to stir up something for a future civil suit. They actually went that far. This is according to what the reader says he and his family experienced. And he actually said that he felt more hurt by the lack of empathy and even willingness to listen to his complaint from the campground than he did by the actual offense that had been committed. So that's really unfortunate. And he did state that, he's not saying he'll never take his son camping again, but it definitely left a sour taste in his mouth, and it's not something that he's looking forward to doing anytime soon, and certainly won't be visiting that particular campground. Now, as for my own personal experience in camping and being outdoors, I am fortunate that I haven't run into anyone who was in your face or blatantly racist toward me or disrespectful to me and my son. I have actually had the exact opposite experience where people were overwhelmingly welcoming, where they were helpful, where park rangers went out of their way to check on us and make sure that we were okay and even didn't need anything. I would venture so far as to say I've had so much so on the opposite end of the spectrum that it was almost too much. I just want to be treated like anyone else. Sure, speak, say hello, make conversation, but a lot of times some of the conversations started to get into beyond being inquisitive, and almost I felt as if I was being questioned about why I was there, and it started to feel just a little too intrusive. I'm there for the same reason that you're there with your family. There's not necessarily some great backstory here. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just how they are. But, sometimes it was a little much. We've definitely gotten stares, because we are always the only people. 9 times out of 10, anywhere that we go, whatever park we go to, campground, we're usually the only Black family there. But I never had anybody be rude about it. We might have some long stares or, some funny looks where we do kind of get that, oh, what are you doing here? Look, but no one's actually said that to us. And I'm not that overly sensitive to where it really bothers me. It is what it is. But I've been fortunate that I haven't had an overtly racist experience. But, I've lived enough years on this earth to have had other racist experiences in other aspects of my life, in other scenarios, other situations. And so, I don't find it far-fetched or hard to believe that other people have had unpleasant experiences when camping while Black. So why does race matter? Well, it matters because if you look at the history of our country, it's a sordid history with a racially divided past, and that's just the facts. In fact, many state parks did not allow Black patrons, and we were given separate state parks that we were permitted to go to, but even the state parks were segregated at one point in time. So for many of us, this is our history, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just a part of the fabric of this nation. And anytime you have something that was tainted and rooted in separatism, then you're going to encounter those issues later on with people who still feel like, we don't belong there. And as I said earlier, every time I'm outdoors, unless it's intentionally where I have brought a group of people together, or I'm attending something that was brought together with a group of people, then every other time we are in predominantly white dominated spaces. And so when that happens, then you're just bound to run into issues where, there is an environment ripe for racism to rear its ugly head. Also, when you look at the way that outdoor recreation is traditionally marketed, you usually don't see brown faces, in those advertising campaigns and commercials. I've seen a shift within the last few years where it's starting to get a little bit better. Toyota ran an ad about glamping, and it was using Black women. I've seen REI start to incorporate some Black models, and a good friend of mine has started modeling for an outdoor company, and she's an ambassador for them, so they've been using her in some of their advertisements. So it's slowly starting to shift a little bit, but not nearly enough to really turn the tide. So if you're not advertising to us, then what does that look like to the consumer? It looks like, well, this isn't something that's meant for me. And the opposite of that being the white consumer, this isn't something that's meant for them. So if it's something that's kind of been ingrained, this bias, usually unconsciously, but this bias exists. And because it exists, then it's something that we have to combat and we have to face and deal with. So is this an issue that is limited to the American outdoor experience? Well, no, it is not. I actually received a comment from a reader somewhere in the UK. She went camping with her family at a campsite in Wales. She's Black, her partner's white, and they have a mixed race child. And she said she felt very unwelcomed and uneasy They received a lot of dirty looks and kind of the questioning looks of what are you doing here, and that people would actually physically turn away from them if they tried to engage with conversation. And the most heartbreaking part of the experience that she shared was that the other children wouldn't play with their son, that they all kind of ostracized him and turned away from him. And that's just really, really sad that, here you have this beautiful young mind that's being formed. And, one of his first early memories of experiencing camping and nature and being outside is going to be that he wasn't welcomed. And this is how we get into that generational stereotype of us not doing certain things because we're made to feel unwelcome. And this reader, like the others, also has said that it hasn't soured her desire to camp. She actually shared that she's already found a different campsite in Wales that was way more accommodating, way more friendly, and she said it was actually a bit more diverse as well. And I was really happy to read that at least they're still out there doing what they love, making memories as a family, and enjoying nature and enjoying the great outdoors as they have every right to. So no, it's not a problem that's limited just to America, and I can imagine other countries as well, because we hear about racially motivated treatment happening in Greece, in Spain, even right now in FIFA. There's a huge number of soccer players who experience discrimination when they go to other countries to play a game, so much so that, they have to end the match. That's a new rule that they've put in place, where if the racial slurs and taunting gets so out of hand that the referees of the soccer match can now actually end the match, causing the other team a forfeit if the racial slurs are not gotten under control. It's crazy, right? This is 2019, but as you can see, there is inherent bias and racism that unfortunately permeates to all corners of the globe, and it's not an issue that's just limited to us here in the United States. So what can you do to be safe as a Black camper just out there trying to live your best life and enjoy nature and the outdoors? Well, a lot of it is honestly really practical advice that's not just limited to Black people, but I do feel that Black people should take a bit of extra care. Just knowing that you're entering a space that is one where you are going to be the minority. So the first bit of advice I would give is, if you are a person who likes nature and the outdoors, make it a habit to have that trusted, friend group or group chat or family that's not attending with you, and always let them know when you're going to be going somewhere, whether you're just going on a hike or especially if you're going camping somewhere overnight. Make sure that people know where you are and how to reach you and how to reach the authorities in the area where you're going to be. I personally am a fan of state parks and national parks because I feel that, they have designated rangers and people set up to help you. These are people that are funded by our tax dollars, and so you have every right to these spaces as anyone else. And when I do frequent those spaces, if I'm going to be camping, I make it a point to stop by the ranger's office. If you get in late and they're already closed, I make it a point that next day when you go to check in, get your firewood and whatever, go make conversation, let them know that you're here, so that they can take a little extra care, you hope, to check on you and be accommodating and just make sure that you're okay, but you want them to know that your presence is there. I also recommend just the basic safety things like having a whistle, having a flashlight, so that if you find yourself in danger, that you can alert an authority. I would also say don't engage with the lunatic that may try to come your way with foolishness, their words. And believe me, I've had them hurled at me, and I know that certain words can hurt us, and certain words can definitely be a trigger and make you want to do bodily harm to somebody. Trust me, been there. But in this situation, it's probably in your best interest to diffuse the situation as much as you possibly can. And by diffuse, if that means retreat and just get out of there, then that's what you have to do, because safety first. And by all means, take it up with the camp management or the park ranger. Let them deal with the lunatic. I also would suggest don't let the campground manager or the park rangers off the hook if you do encounter some type of uncomfortable situation. They need to rectify the situation, especially if you're actually being verbally accosted and harassed. There's no need for that. You've paid your money like anyone else, and the expectation is that those other campers are going to be asked to leave. So, you are owed that. You are owed fair treatment, and don't let them off the hook. Make sure you follow up after your experience with, the next level up, whether it's a corporate level or a state government level, depending on who's running the campground you're staying at. But follow up with them, let them know of the incident, let them know how it was handled, whether it was satisfactory or unsatisfactory, so that, they know that this is a problem, and so that they can try to address the matter. I will say, generally speaking, when you camp, you should usually have some type of a way to defend yourself. I'll just leave it at that. I personally always have a weapon of choice. I'm not going to say what that is, but I have something that's permittable, within the campgrounds. Not talking firearms here, because most campgrounds, that's not going to be something that you're able to bring with you. But whatever it is that you choose to have to protect yourself, have that. Better safe than sorry. Again, that's why I urge you to de-escalate the situation, diffuse it as much as you can, and don't engage with the lunatic. But God forbid, someone actually physically attack you, you need to be able to defend yourself. So that's just a little bit of advice to my fellow Black campers when we're out there in nature and in the outdoors. Another way that you can stay safe is, safety in numbers. There are a growing number of groups that cater to Black people as well as other people of color groups. There's also groups that cater based on sexual orientation. These days, there's groups for just about anything. Some of the Black groups I'm familiar with are Outdoor Afro is a big one. It's a national group, and a lot of times you can find a chapter that may be somewhere near you that's feasible, and they're very welcoming. I've gone places with the Outdoor Atlanta group, even though I live here in Florida. So if you find them and join their Facebook groups, then usually you can find out about adventures that they're planning. And even if you don't live there, maybe you and your family can plan to attend. There's also a group out of Tennessee called Abundant Life Adventure Club. There is a group called Black Girls Hike. There's all kinds of niche groups out there. So using Google and Instagram is a really good way to find your tribe of people. And that way you can plan some of your outdoor adventures with people that you can closely identify with. And that may help you to feel a little bit more safe and a little bit more comfortable. Now, if you are one of my listeners out there who is not someone who identifies as Black or, as a person of color, then this next session is just for you. You may be listening thinking, wow, that's awful. I never really thought about it. It's not something I have to deal with. You're right, but if you consider yourself an ally, then there's definitely ways that you can help to make it better. Number one would be if you are out and about on a trail, kayaking, paddling, at a campsite, just be friendly, be welcoming. A warm smile will go a long way. If you see a Black family out there, just say hello. I'm not saying you need to start telling them what to do and how to set up their tent and how to build a fire. Nobody really appreciates unsolicited advice, but just be welcoming. A warm, friendly face really does go a long way. Number two, invite your Black friends to your outdoor activities. Take us with you. If you have Black friends and you're planning a camping trip, maybe ask and invite them along. Suggest and see if they want to go. I was actually exposed to kayaking and wanting to visit the national parks through a former coworker of mine. He would show me his pictures of the places he would go, and I just thought it was so beautiful, and I had to try it out for myself. So don't assume that it's not our thing, because it just might be that we haven't had anyone to spark that interest for us or expose us to it. And maybe we have the interest, but we don't have anybody to show us. And so being able to do it with you could open up a whole world of possibilities for them. Now, if you don't have any Black friends, I can't help you with that. That's really a whole different conversation for another day. I don't know what to tell you. Diversify your friends. Next, be an advocate for diversity in the outdoors, in the way of advertising, because honestly, I think that the outdoor recreation sucks in that department right now. So, hey brands, I'm calling you out. Do better. Put Black people in your advertisements, in your marketing, intentionally, because if we see it, then it's less of an anomaly. It's more commonplace. It's welcoming to me as the consumer to want to purchase from you and feel that I'm welcomed. And it also makes it more of a norm for your non-Black consumers, that they see that, nature and outdoors is something that all people do. It's not just something meant for me. Maybe that starts to curb a little bit of that entitlement that some people feel about outdoor spaces. And lastly, and probably most importantly, speak up. Speak up and speak out if you see mistreatment of anyone at any time. And if you find someone who is actually being harassed, maybe try to not necessarily intervene and stand up to the other person, because I want you to be safe as well, but maybe you can get the person who's being accosted away from the situation. You can take them with you, or if they've called the authorities, you can wait with them until the authorities get there. But just be somebody who is going to step up and be there in the event that we encounter something unfortunate. And if you have friends in your circle who are saying things out of pocket, who are saying racist things, who are making stereotypes and judgments and assumptions about what Black people do and don't do, speak up and correct them. I've had to do it to fellow Black people. We are our own worst enemies sometimes. I will never forget, my best friend and I had some friends we used to hang out with in Atlanta all the time in college, and we were planning a road trip to go see some waterfalls. And they laughed at us so hard. They're like, oh, ha ha ha, Black people don't do that. What kind of Black girls are y'all? Black people don't hike. Crazy things like that. So it perpetuates the stereotype of what we do and don't do. And the truth is, we do everything. There is no such thing as activities for Black people and activities for white people. There's just not. So speak up, be an advocate, be an ally. And to my Black lovers of nature and the outdoors, please know that by and large, humanity really doesn't suck. I promise it doesn't. And if you have one negative experience, don't let that one experience deter you from doing something that you truly love and you truly enjoy. Being in nature has, great health benefits. It's good for your mental space. It's good to alleviate stress. And it's something that we should be passing down to our kids, to have this love and appreciation of nature and outdoors and travel and having unique experiences and trying new things. So don't let one negative experience deter you from giving it a try. And I wish you all well. Happy adventuring. If you'd like to share your own experience with us about camping while Black, you can send an email to podcast@outdoorsydiva.com. You can also send an email there if you just have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or you want to comment on any of our past episodes. Again, that email address is podcast@outdoorsydiva.com. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, make sure you subscribe to the Outdoorsy Diva podcast. Be sure to check out Misadventures of an Outdoorsy Diva blog on outdoorsydiva.com. You can also keep up with me and my adventures, so check out all of my social channels. Find Outdoorsy Diva on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest.